Good morning, everybody. It is Velva Dawn Silver here on with. It's a bit sketchy, the internet. So today I'm excited. Many of you know that I do this because I like to interview people. I used to have my own radio show on 1-2 Radio, and then I moved over here to doing my own online video, interviewing people that are interesting and just moving into that space. So it's like when I meet people, I just have an intuitive hit that I want to interview them. And by all means, if any of you find that there is somebody that interests you and you want me to interview them, please let me know, because I would be more than happy to do that. So what I try and do is we do have a template of questions, and I just made a brand new set of questions. So I am excited about today's guest. Her name is Mary Paulette, and she's going to be coming on. She specializes, she's an intuitive, but she does many different things. She's had many different avenues of work. So I am just going to chat away here until I bring her on. And one of the specialties that she does is she's an animal communicator. So I know you guys are going to find that interesting because I've never interviewed anybody who's an animal communicator before, but she's also highly intuitive. So I've noticed a theme in all of my guests over the last month or two, actually, where people can be intuitive, but they're in different walks of life, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing the healing work or they're doing readings, for a living, but that they're actually weaving their intuition in whatever avenue they walk. And that's kind of what many of us do here. So I'm just waiting for her to join me here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why I do this show. So today is August 23rd, and I think that many of you are kind of feeling the topsy-turvy energy of what's going on right now. We're moving into Mercury retrograde here coming up, and it is going to be a time to really bring your shadow to the surface. Okay, so here she is. I'm going to bring her on the show. Okay. And there she is.
Hello.
Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good and good. It took me a second to figure it out. I couldn't log in from my laptop. So disappointing. That's okay. I've got my new phone here. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yes, I can.
Let me get myself kind of set up. Sorry for the Blair Witch effect here, people.
That's totally okay. So welcome to Wisdom Weaver Wednesday. And I'm happy that you're here. Thank you for joining me. And why don't you share a little bit with everybody about who you are, where you're from, and what you love about life.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so so I'm Mary Paulette. I go by MP or Mary P. Most people call me that for short, because Mary Paulette can be a little bit of a mouthful and people forget it. So I'm Mary Paulette, and I'm originally from Toronto, but I moved out here to Calgary in 2007. So I've been here ever since. Now is, Calgary's home, which I really, really love. So quite different from Ontario. I mean, I still miss Ontario sometimes, but, this is where I call home. I started on my intuitive journey probably, I've had my gifts all of my life, but really when I started to focus in and learn how to use them, I would say it was probably in my early 30s. So, and then I started my animal communication business, because when I first started, and we've had this conversation, Velva Dawn, where it's like I had no idea where my gifts were going to take me, and I was trying to pigeonhole myself. So then it got to the point where I thought, okay, you know what, instead of me trying to make a force fit, let me just listen to the call of universe. And so universe kept on sending me animals. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'm going to be an animal communicator. And it was just so instant. So yeah, I started my business in 2018, and that's my passion. So what do I love about life? Oh my gosh. I feel like this is a little bit of like a rainbows, lollipops, and sunshine question for me, because, and I don't mean that in a facetious way. I mean, like, I'm just a lover of life through and through. I've really gone through a lot of mindset shifts where before, victim mentality and just a whole bunch of stuff. And so now I'm really, really committed to making sure that my state is solid. right? So yeah, I love everything. Probably connection, I would say. Connection is like what I love most about life. Yeah.
And I love what you just said there, where you said making sure your mindset is okay, right?
Yeah.
And just before you came on, I was just talking a little bit about Mercury retrograde coming on board here, and how we're seeing everything in the universe sort of, bringing all the darkness to the surface, right? Or the stuff you haven't worked on. It's time now. It's like no more waiting until tomorrow. It's like you're going to deal with it now. So
Yeah.
exciting times for people like you and I to be there to say, hey, if you need help, we're here on the sidelines, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get right into the personal questions. And I was telling everybody that we have a whole new set of questions. I revamped them all, so I'm excited to begin sharing that. Okay, let's start here. I'm going to start because you know me, going raw, going deep.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Okay. So, what is the hardest challenge you've had to overcome in your life? And what tools did you use to move through those challenges?
Okay, there's a few things that come to mind. Um, oh goodness. There's a few things that come to mind. The biggest challenge, probably, I'm pausing because there's a whole bunch of things that are coming forward, but I also want to be sensitive to, um, you know, just keeping some of the situations anonymous, because they do involve other people, right? So,
Yes.
probably my childhood trauma, you know. That took me a little bit to get through. There's been a lot of stuff there in my childhood trauma. And so with that, I really didn't realize how much I was in, actually, let me reframe that. It was getting out of fight or flight mode, because all of my life, I basically was in survival mode, right? So my biggest challenge was being able to rest and lean out of my masculine, right? Because I was always looking at, how do I need to protect myself? I can't rely on anyone. So that was probably my biggest challenge. And it still comes up today, right? It still comes up today in personal relationships, even friendships, and just in my business sometimes, right? But now I can recognize when it comes up, and I can recognize the trigger, and I can understand, okay, this is old pattern, and I don't need to protect myself here. So I really transitioned from trusting universe. And I know this might sound super cliche and like super superficial, but this is what I use to reprogram myself, was that universe is not out to, can I swear, by the way? Is that okay? All right. That was because I just wanted to, universe is not to fuck you over, right? It really is. Those are mindsets that we are conditioned to through generational trauma, right? So, in my view, okay. So, at the outset, I was like, okay, so if the universe is not out to fuck me over, or make me suffer my entire life, what else is there, right? So I just reminded myself every single day, like, the universe has my back. And when I started to really believe that, that's when things started to shift. And then that's when I was able to use outside circumstances, right? Because success always leaves clues, right? So then I was able to look outside of myself and say, okay, well, this experience happened, which is in direct contrast of this mindset over here. And then it eventually got to the point where, my sack was full over here, and no longer was this a valid argument for what was happening. I was like, no, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't happen if this is what I believe. So that's what I used, was just that, just trust the universe. Trust the universe has my back. And that doesn't mean, just like, oh, blindly falling back and, being naive or ignorant or anything like that. It was just a really ingrained belief that I am deserving, and also I am loved, right? The universal love. We're all here for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably I'm gonna say my biggest challenge was that mindset thing. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, thank you for your honesty, because I think many of us have the childhood. Everyone has some sort of childhood issues, or, you know, teenage years in your life, whether it was lack of confidence, whether it was abuse, being bullied, you know, all of those things repeat themselves later on in life. And I find that I love what you said too about, okay, this isn't reality. This is something from the past coming forward, giving me anxiety. You know, anxiety is either from going forward or backwards, but being in the present, you know, where you're grounded, you can become aware that you're using these old patterns.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who has made the most influence in your life?
Oh, I'm gonna say Tony Robbins. So because so when I first got introduced to Tony Robbins, I was like, what the heck is this? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget the first UPW, Unleash the Power Within, that I did. And everyone's like jumping around, and I'm sitting here, and it was all virtual. And so I'm sitting in this office, and I'm like, what? I'm not doing this. And then I heard this voice that was like, okay, what have you got to lose? There are 30,000 other people who are dancing like maniacs on your camera. Nobody's watching you, right? And so I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to do it. So I danced. And so anyway, Tony really helped me reframe things, really helped me see things in a different view. So I've done all of his programs. I took the leap, and it was the best investment I've ever made in my life. And yeah, so I would probably say Tony Robbins to date. He continues to give to me anyway. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. I love this question. That's why I had to put it in here. Where would you never visit, even if you were paid $1 million?
I saw that
right?
question, and I was like, no, is she going to ask me that? That was one of the questions that, like, when I scanned them, I was like, oh, okay, this one stood out. Gosh. And I thought about it. I don't think there's anywhere in the world that comes to mind for me. The one that comes to mind for me is Mars, because you can only go there and you can't come back.
Yeah. That's a good one, actually.
So, but if I was to go there to, you know, for research or something, then that might be a little bit different. But yeah, it would be Mars.
Okay. I like that. No going to Mars for you.
No.
Okay. Perfect. Now, this is a question that I was recently asked for a magazine that's coming up here, and I thought, I like this question. What superpower do you wish that you had, and which one do you have?
Oh. Probably flying. Like, I would love to be able to fly. I think that would be super cool. I've always been fascinated with birds. Superpowers that I have. I can remote view. So, which is really cool. Yeah, a lot of times I'll be in sessions and I'll be like, hey, your house is talking to me, your plants are talking to me, this is talking to me. So, and obviously, like, I don't connect without permission as well. So I'll always ask for permission before I connect. But yeah, I would say the superpower I have is remote viewing. It's pretty cool.
It is cool, isn't it? I like that one too. Yeah. Okay. What is an unusual habit that you have?
Oh.
Or do you have one? Maybe you don't.
Probably. I guarantee you I do. Okay, so probably, well, I make my bed every morning. That's not really weird. I like order. So probably the weirdest thing is when you get watermarks on your tap. Like, I always wipe down my tap after I wash my hands. And I'll go in and walk by the bathroom because I have a teenager who's trying to distract me right now. And so I'll go into the bathroom like, oh, there's watermarks here. Okay, I'm just gonna go. So that's probably my weirdest thing.
No, it's not weird because I do the same thing.
Okay, good.
So I do. I hear you. I like order too and all of that. Okay, now I want to get a little bit into the spirituality part because I feel like that's what people are needing right now is a little bit. So this one's off the cuff because I'm just going to go with it.
Okay.
I see a lot of people struggling right now mentally, post lockdown. It's now where I see a lot of the struggle is people think that it's not, but as a healer and an intuitive, the people that are coming are really struggling now. They're really looking deeply at, the things that they haven't. What do you think people need to hear right now to help them move through this time in life?
I think that's probably a segue to what I was thinking about before, because, I understand like there's a lot of financial stress that's happening for people right now. And that's really big. So money is like also equates to love too, right? So it's really that this is only this point in time, right? So this doesn't mean that what's happening for you today will continue in a week from now, in 2 weeks, in a month, in 5 years, 10 years. This isn't an extrapolation of your life, and just keeping that in perspective. And I know that that's easier said than done. And some people are probably going to be like, what? Right? But I totally get that. But if you really, really try and focus on this is this moment now, because as humans, we're really famous for taking that and projecting that forward, right? And so realizing that you might not be able to see on the other side of the fog, but aircraft, for example, that's why they have ILS, right? Like that's why, so you can fly through the clouds without any visibility, and you know that you're still headed in the same direction. So that's probably the biggest thing, to know that there is life and light on the other side of whatever you're going through now. And also allow yourself to forgive yourself. So I love the prayer Ho'oponopono. I'm sure you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. It's such a beautiful prayer. It's so it's crafted in such a special way as well. And that's something that I use often. And I'll just say it, and then I send it out, right? So yeah.
Yeah, when I was in Hawaii one time, my friend Fauna actually took the course from him. Yeah, he's passed since, but
yeah,
definitely, it's beautiful. So a little tidbit there for everybody that's listening, what you just said is, even though things may be difficult in this moment, just know that, on the other side of this, there's going to be a great expansion. That's why it's happening, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like for many of us that are healers, sometimes we have the hardest lessons because we need to develop the skills to walk in a million shoes so that we can feel and understand what people are going through, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the way I've chosen actually to look at all of the events that I've been through, right? And that's what makes me able to relate into so much of the human emotion. And that's my gift, right? Like my purpose here is really, it's about healing. It's about healing and loving. Like I'm just like, I'm a lover at heart, right? That's with me. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's a good thing to be, right? We need more people like you out there, which comes, having an open heart and doing your work and trusting. But we have the glitches here and there, right? But we know how to move through them. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, my fave question that I like to ask everybody is, what would you tell your 20-year-old self today? What advice would you give her?
Oh. So it's kind of twofold. So I grew up in so I've done a lot of work in polarity, right? Within myself and also within relationships. And so, I've talked a lot in the past about the balance of the feminine and the masculine, right? So at the outset, I wish that I had known that there was another way. I didn't understand that there was a feminine side to me because I was brought up in a very, like, in a masculine way, right? So I didn't know what it was to exercise, like, peace, calm, serenity, surrender, love, like true love, not love as in this has to happen and then I love, right? So the advice I'd go back to is just following my heart, because I always knew in my heart. I think that's why I went through, some of the experiences that I went through my 20s into my early 30s, was because I was resisting the feminine that was trying to come out. And I always thought that that was weak, right? And so if you look at my roles, I'm in regulatory compliance. My background's in law. I was a police officer, right? So it wasn't until I had Austin, my son, that I started to unravel, right? And not unravel as in, like, come apart. It was like unravel as in, oh, hang on a second here. Like, this spring can actually stretch, and it's meant to be stretched. It's not meant to be like, like this. So yeah, that's probably the advice I'd give to myself is it's okay to lean into your feminine. It doesn't mean that you're weak, right? And so, and feminine is very different from crying and being all sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, right? That's not being feminine. No, hang on, let me rephrase that. That's the stereotypical, superficial side of feminine, but it's not really. But yeah. Yeah.
And I like that you refer to the feminine in that way, because I feel like I too was very masculine and very alpha and very type A. And, what you had said is, you love, it's not safe until you make sure, that everything's in line before you can love, right? That you can freely love, unconditionally love yourself and other people, right? And when you actually get that, it just opens the spectrum up.
Yeah.
And when you talked about the feminine and masculine, how would you describe that? Just for everybody who's listening, because it's a hot spot. People are often saying to me, what do you mean unwinding the divine masculine? What does that mean? So what does it mean to you to have the feminine and masculine within yourself?
Absolutely. So, so for me, I'm, I would identify as a strong, independent woman, right? But it doesn't mean I have to do everything alone, right? So I had a lot of shame from asking for help, wanting support. So I didn't know how to ask for that and advocate for myself as well. So it's about, so for me, how my masculine presented itself in the past, right, would have been, the doer, right? It was like constantly doing. It was more using like more, what's that saying? You get more with honey than you do vinegar, right? Or something in that realm. But I was always vinegar, because it was like, no, if I'm honey, I don't trust you, because I didn't trust myself to be able to protect myself. Right? I couldn't even protect myself from my masculine. So for me, it was all about protection. And then my feminine was manifesting itself as, or presenting itself as, like the more of the wounded feminine, because I hadn't nurtured it. So it was still immature. It was still very like weepy. And if you look at like a toddler, for example, right, really overwhelmed and didn't know how to love myself and that type of thing. And so now it's about, hey, I can do this. And I know if I push forward, absolutely I can do this. But it's like, I also am open to receiving help here on this side. So I don't feel like I have anything to prove. And it wasn't about proving anything to anyone outside of me. At the end of the day, it was about proving to myself that I could do it on my own. So, and then I realized, I'm like, hang on, it's so much harder when you go at everything alone, right? Then it's, it's just really, really overwhelming. So, and it's scary. The first time that you lean into your feminine and you ask for help, it's going to be messy until you practice it, right? And that's just it. You have to practice it And it comes from a place of non-judgment. Really, those things that I described before is like surrender and forgiveness, like true, honest, deep forgiveness and peace. And just, I don't know, it reminds me of a lake. When you look out at a lake in the beginning of the morning and it's just super calm. Like that's what right? And then masculine is like the warrior, like the samurai.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
I love that visual a lot.
Yeah.
I can totally relate to what you're saying. I'm sure there's a lot of women that are on here that are going to be able to relate. And for the men, I hope that you get this view also, because men also have feminine, masculine within them. Every man, woman, child, every living thing does. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay. What does spirituality mean to you?
Okay, that's causing me to pause quite a bit here. I feel like for me, in this moment in time, from my view, it is being connected with your essence. Because everyone's spirituality is different, right? Sometimes there's God, there's Allah, there's, you name it. There's an entity, and sometimes there's not, right? And I feel like for me, I practice spirituality through practicing, like through my essence, like right to the core, right? So yeah, that's what it is in short, anyway.
Yeah. That's deep and good. I love that, because somebody asked me that the other day. They said, what do you refer, to the higher self? And I said, I refer to it as the divine, right? Your divine connection, and whatever that may be for you, because everyone's got a different lens, right?
Yep.
So I love that you talked about inside, because life's an inside job, right? You're connecting to your own essence. So 100%. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about love just for a moment. Okay. What does it take to keep the love flowing within a relationship?
That is hands down vulnerability and trust. So it's being able to show up just how you are in whatever way that is in the moment, without, and not self-abandoning, right? So because I think sometimes in relationship we feel like we have to wear a mask, or we have to be a certain way to be loved, right? Because oftentimes we are faced with that. I think you've done actually a post on this that I've seen, where I feel like we go through life, well, anyway, our 20s and 30s and even our late teenage years, and we build up these walls, right? And then once you approach, for me, it was about my mid 30s, I'm like, oh, what? Why is that wall there, right? So now it's about, I call it reconstructing. So it's reconstructing to support healthier and expanded views, as opposed to, right? So yeah, it's not about self-abandoning. And so that's where I was going with the mask, right? So if you're vulnerable and you're like, hey, I actually need you in this moment, it gives the person the opportunity to respond. Whereas if you are not sharing that, they have no way to respond. And so it's like, then you respond, and then they respond to that, and then you respond. And so it's this tag team, right? It's that partnership. So yeah, I would say it's vulnerability and just trusting and knowing that your person is going to be able to support you through, and I'm not talking about unhealthy behaviors, right? I'm talking about healthy behaviors when you're navigating, when you're trying to do the work, because sometimes it's a process to, to work through stuff, right? But your person is always going to have your back, right? And if somebody turns their back on you, it doesn't mean that you are too much or you're too intense or what have you. It just means that the person that you chose wasn't able to hold that container, right? So analogy that I use for that is, we want to go to Italy. I'm going to Italy at the end of September, right? So I can either fly a Cessna there, which would be extremely difficult, right? or I can actually fly the proper aircraft, Airbus, Boeing, whatever you want to call it, right? That's going to take me there. And so it's knowing what vessel you're choosing and understanding why you keep on choosing the Cessna over and over again, because it comes from inside, right? There's something in you that says, oh, I can only do as much as a Cessna, or I only deserve as much as a Cessna, right? So, yeah.
You just answered. I was just going there, so you just picked that up, because I was like, I did this post the other day and it was called "The Payoff is, worth it," right? Because so many times when I was dating back in the day, which wasn't that long ago anyway, when I was dating, people would say to me, I could see my girlfriends looking at me and saying, what are you doing, right? Like, why? And I would say to them, I'm up leveling each time, right? Because whoever I'm with is reflecting back to me what it is that I need to work on within myself, especially the masculine, reflecting the masculine back within myself, right? Because having the assertive masculine from my childhood, I found that each time I did that, it was like I learned within myself. So that's what you answered, is looking at your vessel and understanding what your vessel needs, right? You probably have found that similar in your dating world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a very, very important thing to understand, that you're not failing because you're moving through relationships. Sometimes you're learning, right?
Everything is a learning. That's what I think, right? Like
Yes.
everything is a learning, because it's true in relationship. And I learned this through EMDR, and I could really see which, EMDR is for PTSD, for those who aren't familiar. And so yeah, it's like when you choose somebody, you're choosing everything that you like about yourself in them, and also everything that you don't like about yourself. And then they'll mirror both of those, right? So it's understanding that, and understanding that they're a mirror. People are a mirror of your internal. That's what animals are as well.
So let's talk a little bit about that for a sec because I'm curious myself, and I think other people want to know, what is the most interesting animal that you've connected with and their story?
Oh my goodness, I have connected with so many, like fish, birds, like lizards, spiders, like you name it. Like I have pretty much worked with it. Probably piranha. So I had a client down in southern Alberta that had piranha, and it was really interesting what came out, because I was like, oh, I can see this visual out of their eyes. And I described a setting, and her face just like dropped, right? Because what they were showing me was a gentleman sitting with a leg up. It looked like there was a leg injury at the kitchen table. And she was like, my husband just had surgery on his leg, and that's where he sits. And that's really the only place he can sit because of the angle of the leg. So, and they were concerned about that. And then they were also able to tell me things that they needed for their water. So they needed more salt. And she was like, but I just gave them salt. And I said, well, I don't know. They're saying that they need more salt. And I don't know. I didn't know anything about piranha. So anyway, yeah. She texted me the next day and she said, they are super happy. They had all their color back. So I guess for piranha specifically, yeah, if the pH in the water is off, then they lose their color. So yeah, when they're happy, they're dark. So yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. I can see you looking through the lens of the fish, right? So that's very interesting. I like that. That's awesome. Okay, let's talk about mental health, because this is a very valid scenario here and now in our world. What does mental health mean to you, and what habits do you have in place to keep your mental health in check?
Yeah. Mental health to me means meeting yourself where you're at without the expectation that you need to be perfect, and understanding that it's normal to go through the spectrum of emotions, right? It's just we get afraid because we attach on, and so we attach onto things and then make that mean something about us, right? So for me, my mental health what's important to me and how I take care of myself is, I did a year worth of EMDR, right? And so that was to work on trauma from work situations, trauma from, and when I say trauma is essentially just any emotion that wasn't allowed to be processed, right? It doesn't have to be something like big, huge, So, and some people refer to it as like little t, big T, that type of thing. And trauma is not a bad word. I just feel like it's one that gets thrown out there as more of like a bandwagon word, right? But yeah, it's just an emotion. It's an experience that wasn't allowed to be processed. And so what I learned through EMDR and why there were so many limiting beliefs and why things I couldn't trust was because when you go through PTSD, for example, your memories are not organized between the hemispheres of your brain properly. So again, not a medical professional, but this is my understanding. This is what I took away from my year in therapy was, yeah. And so then once I started organize my memories, I was like, oh, that makes way more sense as opposed to what I was using to fill in the blanks and like, so there's a spot over here and there's a spot over here, but you can't stitch a straight line, right? It was like, like this. And so like so many things can get stuck in those corners and then you just make up a whole bunch of crap, right? So, yeah. And so what I do is I really allow myself to feel all of the emotions. So I've really done a lot of work in feeling my feelings and not attaching to them. And yeah, therapy is still something that I'm very, very passionate about. So, I do that regularly. I also take care of myself physically because I know too that our body is a conduit that can only hold so much energy. Right. And so when our circuits are overloaded, then that's when things start to go haywire. So I make sure that I just charge my, I keep my breaker clean. I don't overload my breaker. And I know when to call it, right? There are some days where I'll look at my son, I'll be like, mom needs a timeout right now. And he's like, okay, I get it. He knows what that means because I've taught him what a timeout means. And I've taught him not to have any shame with needing a timeout or just needing time to be by yourself. So yeah.
Which is good. It's so good to teach him that. And the other part I want to touch on, because I teach this all the time and preach it really, is you need to move your body. However you move your body, if it's going for a walk, if it's running on the treadmill, if it's lifting weights, if it's swimming, whatever you're doing, pickleball, whatever you're doing, you want to be moving your body, because there's so many times where I'm on the treadmill and I literally will have a notepad because I get all these ideas, right? And so I'm writing them down when I'm at home on the treadmill, because you're moving the old energy out of your feet, out of your root chakra, and then it allows more energy to come in. It's like you're talking about your body as a vessel. It can only hold so much, right?
Exactly.
So that's
for sure.
That's a really good visual for everybody to have. Okay.
And then the other thing is your central nervous system, right? Because the central nervous system is like the motherboard. So when you're deregulated, it's really hard to have stability anywhere else, right? So that's probably the other thing that I focus on too, is my central nervous system and just being able to, And that one's a little bit harder sometimes, right? Because I can feel it. I'm like, I don't know, I'm deregulated. What do I need to do right now? And sometimes I'm like, okay, I need to eat a small tub of ice cream. That's what I need to do to bring myself back into regulation. Different if I did that every day, but like I do allow myself that. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really good.
It does sound really good. Yeah. What kind of ice cream do you have?
Well, I'm allergic to dairy, right? So, but and gluten, my million allergies that I have. But I found this one, I forget what brand name it is. Anyway, it's a chocolate cookie dough, and there's chocolate in it. And it's made from coconut and rice flour and real chocolate. It's like to die for. I love it.
That sounds amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Who are some of your other favorite people to follow in business?
In business. Huh. I am at a loss right now because it kind of shifted. I used to follow a lot of thought leaders, like in leaders in business. I mean, Warren Buffett, everybody loves Warren. Well, not everybody loves Warren Buffett, but brilliant man. Yeah, probably, again, like there is a little bit of Tony in that too, because there was a lot of things that relate into the business aspect there. I can't name one person off the top of my head, because now I'm more about who are the leaders that I follow that promote wellness and getting right within, you know, like really taking care of yourself and being your best self and that type of thing. So that's the holistic psychologist for me. I think she's absolutely brilliant. I love her. Yeah.
Me too. And that's what I find. There's so many people emerging who have the Eastern and the Western background together. You know, Lisa Rankin is another one. She's a medical doctor who is very intuitive, and she's wrote a lot about that. And yeah, she's a good one. I really like her too. There's so many, right?
I know Mel Robbins.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
You know, and yeah, because I used to think it was externally, right? If I just anchored to something externally, if I just made it, you know, I put that in quotation marks, that if I just make this amount of money this year, or if I just have this or this or this or this, and then when you reach it, you're like, okay, well, the goalpost has changed, right? So it's like, yeah, looking at why you need that to fulfill something inside here.
Exactly. Okay, so you kind of touched on this a little bit, but how many careers have you had in your life?
Oh my. Well, my first job ever was I worked at Arthur Treacher's, which is a fish and chip. I did franchise. I don't even know if they're still oh my gosh, Upper Canada Mall in Newmarket. That's how I found out I was allergic to fish. So, you know, yeah, I run through the gamut like when I was a teenager, and then I went into policing, and then from there, you know, there were some life changes I wanted to make, and so I was deathly afraid of flying. So I thought, okay, let's become a flight attendant. So then I was a flight attendant with WestJet, and then lost my first baby. So then when I got pregnant with Austin, really reevaluated and didn't want to go through that experience again. So then I applied for the government and so I work for Transport Canada as well. And so I've moved through so many roles there. So there I started out as an inspector, and now I'm a national manager. So, but I've been there also for like 16 years, right? So I've been there a really, really long time, since 2008. So yeah. So, and then my animal communication. So there's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah.
But before you came on, I was kind of saying to everybody, what I've found so interesting is that everybody has intuition. Everybody has it. It's some people just, you know, strengthen it more than others. And it's weaved through every walk of life. So whether you're a policeman, whether you're a flight attendant, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a lawyer, whether you are a healer, you always have that weaving through internally. And you can tell when you connect with somebody through every walk of life if that is ignited.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, next question. If you won $1 million, or if you won the lottery, because $1 million isn't really a lot of money anymore. If you won the lottery, would you continue with the same career that you have now?
Oh, yes, but because I work for Transport Canada as well, so I would just be, because my passion is my clients, right? So, absolutely, I don't think I would ever be able to stop that, right? I just get so much fulfillment. So 100%, I would still continue what I would do. Yeah, I would do it around the world in person more, right? So.
That'd be amazing. Just flying all over. Okay. I'm in the taboo section here. So
all right, I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What is the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Gosh. If there's one thing about me, I don't do anything halfway. I'm either all in or all out. It's like 0 or 100. I don't know. I've done so much. I travel a lot on my own. I moved across the country, didn't know anybody. Back in the day, do you remember Craigslist, when Craigslist used to be? Yeah. So when I first moved out here, it literally was like I was completely packing up my life in Ontario, and I was just like, mic drop, I'm out. See you later. Because I didn't want to have anything to do with anything back there at that time with what I was going through. So yeah, just packed up and came out to Calgary, and had my apartment through Craigslist. And I remember getting there and I was like, what is this? Right? It was just the weirdest thing, the layout, and I was just like, oh gosh, I think I stayed there like a week and then I found something else. But that's probably like moving out here with nobody. Like I had no one, I didn't even have a job. So all I had was the guarantee of an interview with WestJet, and I was just so determined to get it, right? So so I worked at $10 an hour for sometimes like 18 hours a day to make ends meet until I got hired on with WestJet. So yeah, for a couple months. It was a grind. It was a grind.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And it makes you appreciate where you are now, having those hard moments, right? And you can do anything.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, next question. When did you last cry, and what was it about?
Last night. So, and it was just about surrender, and it was tears of relief. It was tears of like, I'm so ready to be fully seen for even the stuff that I hid about myself before, and it was just so freeing. Like it felt so free. So I was just releasing from that. It was like gratitude, grief. It was just a whole bunch of stuff mixed in. And it was like, it was giving myself permission to allow myself to surrender in that way. Because I had never done that before. So yeah, that's what that was about.
Well, thank you for being honest about that. It's good to cry. It's good to let those emotions out sometimes, right? Move them out of your body.
Yep. Yeah.
Next one. This is good. If you could have witnessed any event in history, which event would you have chosen?
Oh,
I know. It's a
probably landing on the
moon. Yeah.
Because I feel like, and actually like experience it. Like I would have loved to gone up there, landed, and so it's like I have a sense of what that felt like just through like remote viewing, but I think that would have been the most powerful. It's still mind bending, right? Just to know that we exist, not just here by ourselves. There's more, and it's just like it's infinite. So I like that feeling and that sense of we're a part of something greater, which is a part of something greater, which is a part of something even greater, right? Yeah.
Microcosm and macrocosm. Yeah, exactly. As above, so below. I love that. That's really good about the moon. You have a lot of energy connected to you as above, right? Mars, the moon.
I know, and I have my galaxy on my back, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah, you do. I love that. Okay. Was it important for you to have children?
Ooh. Hey, you got me right in the feels on this one. So when I was younger, I did not want to have kids. And I understand that why I was of that mindset now, because I didn't have the nurturing. I didn't understand what it was like to love something, right? A child was just a pain in the ass, something that was, you know, because that's the way I was treated, right? So it was a burden, and I was afraid. I was like, I can't even love myself. So, you know, hindsight, I see that now. But at the time, I was like, no, I'm good. I don't need kids. And I'm not saying this is the case for everyone, right? Everyone has their own reason. It doesn't mean that, you know, the same reasons apply to anyone else who might be watching or listening that doesn't want children. For me, it was, I was afraid to be that vulnerable. And then, had my first baby that I lost. And it was really traumatic. And then I felt this connection, and I was like, oh, I am capable of being a loving human being, right? So because I was of this mindset that I was just a horrible, like, because I got told a lot that I was a waste of skin. So you know, growing up is like, well, if I'm a waste of skin, why am I going to be a mom to somebody else? So so that was a really big pivot point. And then gosh, I love Austin. He's just like, he's my world. So
And it's true, like, because you talk to people that are younger, and sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm never having children. And usually everybody has their own reason, but usually there's something underneath that you need to look at deeper. So thank you for your complete authenticity there. For anybody who's listening and maybe has the same thoughts, it's worth looking into, because I can't imagine not having them, right?
Oh my gosh. No. I mean, I know that my life would be completely different, but I understand my life purpose. I spoke about it at the beginning. It's love and connection. And so for me, I think I would have always been searching for that love and connection piece. And having that close now, and knowing that, oh no, this was what I was meant to do, as opposed to, am I a perfect mom? No, nobody is, right? But I know that raising Austin is something that is just, I continue to learn even from him, right?
Totally. Well, that's good. Thank you. Okay, what is your favorite quote? What's one of your favorite quotes that you say all the time?
I can't think of any off the top of my head. It is probably, because I used to say all these mantras all the time. I love the Beatles, so, you know, there's a lot of Beatles quotes. Probably Let It Be. That's one that resonates a lot. I have quotes up in my, but they're longer quotes. But yeah, just, it's in the realm of like, don't sell yourself out, like, don't self-abandon, right? So I know for me, a lot of my life lessons were about, I was looking for myself in others, and I was looking for permission from the love of somebody else to be able to love myself, because if they loved me, then that gave me permission, and then that was like, oh, okay, I'm allowed to do that now, right? So it's like just giving yourself permission, you know, giving yourself permission, and probably let it be.
The big hashtag quote right now is let them, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
So it's good that you said let it be, because it's true. When you disconnect from the external and you're just connected internally, not that you don't care or you're not conscious, right? But you're just, there's no attachment to let them do what they need to do. Okay. Now this one's good too. I want to hear what you have to say. If you had the attention of the whole world for 5 minutes, what would you say to them?
I love you. You are loved. You belong. There's probably more, but those are the ones that come through.
Yeah, I can feel that. That's powerful. Thank you. So what can people expect from you next? Like, do you have something you're working on?
Mm. What can people expect from me next? I think it's just, status quo, like still the really committed to my clients and, just adventure probably,
Mm-hmm.
right? Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like it's more on the personal stuff. I feel like a lot of my life I've been focused on my professional, and so now it's more focused on having a balance. So that's probably what they can expect is like, the sharing of having that balance and
Mm-hmm.
how important it is.
Mm-hmm.
So and not identifying in any certain thing that's external from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, yeah, doing what makes you happy
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, it's life is too short.
Yes. Hashtag YOLO. It's very short, right? When we think about it.
Yeah.
Um, okay, one more thing. I feel it's important for the people that are wondering about the animal communication. So if somebody's wondering,
Mm-hmm.
what can you do for them with their animals?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things that I help with for animals. So it doesn't have to be just, an issue that you're having with your animal. It's really about understanding your animal and how their experience of life is and being able to help them because they're also dealing with the energy that comes off of us as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the way I communicate with animals is through thoughts, feelings, sensations, vision, sounds, taste, and smells. So I take all of those messages and I put them together like a puzzle so I'm able to share with you the holistic message of what's happening for them, right? So it's really about bringing peace and harmony into their lives and your lives, but also understanding what your animal needs at a deeper level. So that could be health conditions, that could just be overall well-being, senior pets. Transitioning is a lot of work that I do with senior pets, reactivity, and just really understanding, how we can support our animals. So food allergies, like you name it, it really there is no limit
Mm-hmm.
to what I can help out with. So, and I'd say if anyone's curious, I do offer a 15-minute free consultation. So don't hesitate to reach out to me, or don't even hesitate to reach out to me like for a phone call or an email or text message or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll connect and we'll see how I can help because there's a lot of different ways that I can help. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there's one question I have that I want to ask you is when you're in the family and there's a pet and say you have, so I just wanted to touch on this because I found this interesting. So when my mother-in-law passed away, my ex-mother-in-law, quite a few years ago, literally 2 days after she passed,
Mm-hmm.
my father-in-law's horse died. He was dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out to the barn and I was sitting with him. And in the native culture, they often say that, the horse will take the grief, for example, from someone who has passed, right? And that was my first real connection of, animals really do take on what the humans and what the owners are going through.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it
Okay.
can be, I had a client yesterday, one of my clients, I was like, there's something going on in terms of relationships, like, and it feels like there's an issue with the neighbor. Anyway, so this was just between the humans, but the dogs were picking it up. And so the dogs were picking it up, and there were just some different behaviors that were coming from that. So being able to give them an understanding of, oh, this is why this is happening now, or this is what this quirk is, then it allows them to be like, oh, okay. And just also giving the animals permission not to feel like they have to take all of our stuff on as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They're pretty special.
Yeah.
I love my dogs and animals.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, we're coming to the end of our hour. So I'm going to put your website in the comments below for everyone who is wanting to connect with you in that way. The one thing that I want to is where can people find you and I guess, what would your closing message be for our time here today? What would you like to close with?
What would I like to close with? It's really, I want people to understand that, in the world of animals, there can be a lot of polarity, there can be a lot of judgment, and I really come from a non-judgmental space. I understand that everyone has their own circumstances, right? And so, just I come with that openness, and that I'm really passionate about helping people cope with whatever issues that they might be having with their animals, right? So just knowing that I've got your back, essentially, and I'm here to help. Like that's really what I want to do, is to help you. And then to find me, I have my personal profile on Facebook, so Mary Paulette McDonogh. And then I also have my Facebook page, which is Connect with Mary Paulette. I'm also on Instagram, and then my website, which you'll put in the comments there. So www.marypaulette.com. So that's how people can find me. I'm super accessible, really open to just having conversations with people about their animals and just about themselves as well, right? So like my door is always open, probably, is what my parting message would be for whatever that might be, right?
And thank you for sharing that, because I think for a lot of people too, their pets are their babies, right? And they're very special to us, and they're just little souls in a different body, right? So, so I want to thank you for taking the time to be here on Wisdom Weaver Wednesday, and I'm excited to share your website. And for people, once again, she said that she does 15-minute consults. So if you have a question and you're wondering, don't be afraid to reach out, because she's here to help you. So thank you so much for joining us, and have an amazing day.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Velva Dawn. It's been absolutely lovely, and I look forward to connecting again. So
yes, me too. All right. Thank you.
Okay,
all right. Bye everybody.